Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So my apologies for the delay in the 7.3 guides. Honestly, it's just kind of like a personal demotivation thing, seeing as if these are the videos that typically do worst in the views, but I decided to stop feeling bad for myself and just get on with it. So we're gonna start off with this Paradox buff lane, which is actually misleading name, because the last thing you really want here is gaining a ton of buffs uncontrollably. In effect, you don't want champions that buff, because the only buff you really need to work with is dexterity and perhaps an armor up buff against Havoc further down the line. That is it. Now, what you really want is avoiding buffs because of Spite or power control. Now, you are given extra amount of power control because of this Paradox node, where you have 15% per Paradox charge ability to drain opponent's power, and you lose one Paradox charge every time you parry. But again, it's very easy to gain more of them back just by, triggering dex, and you can't land a parry initially anyways until you gain 3 Paradox charges. So the thing that actually helps you the most probably here is some sort of power control, power lock, or petrify just to counter Spite, and then this throwing special attacks will power drain opponents comfortably. So despite what the name Paradox buffs might tell you, you want to avoid buffs. You want your Mr. Fantastics, you want your Voids, you want perhaps Captain America Infinity Wars, whoever, and they will do much better. Other than that, yeah, that's pretty much it. You need to be aware of Bishop and Havoc. Now, if you have plenty of Paradox charges, and if you are maybe using like Mr. Fantastic, something like that, the best way how to deal with this Bishop is just don't really let him use special attacks. And you can do that with, I don't know, magic, or you can do it with magic. Might not be the best option, but some champion that might be able to stun reliably, like and does not gain buffs at the same time, like perhaps Gambit even, because you are able to power drain with every special attack, you can kind of try and stun loop them as well. So there are plenty of options. The Bishop fight will be more annoying. The Havoc fight, I personally used Warlock and it was fairly tricky, I'll admit. But I think actually both of these fights could be handled quite well with Mr. Fantastic and him just, stacking up Petrifies and then dropping level 2s, reducing their combat power rate. And then every time you use special attack, you also power drain them. So I think the answer there largely lies in Petrify buffs, maybe Spidey 2099 as well. You'll never trigger that Spite to begin with, and then every special attack you use will power drain the opponents. Oh wait, never mind, Spidey can't gain any buffs, so Spidey 2099 is out of the picture, but you guys got the point. Right, let's move on to the easiest lane, what I think is here overall, or one of the easiest anyways, which is this triple threat lane. Every time you strike the opponent, you have 50% chance to gain a debuff. However, these debuffs are very weak, and their potency gets reduced even further the higher combo meter goes. And then we have like Power Shield, and this is very, very, very easy node to go up against, because you're going to be gaining a bunch of debuffs. Thus you can trigger plenty of cheese abilities on Kingpin. You can gain charges plenty with Mole Man, or you can get extra damage on Silver Surfer, and there are more champions who interact very well with more debuffs placed on them. Like even Killmonger will get like tons of power constantly and throw special attacks very easily, and that is all you need to know. If you don't lose your combo, all of these debuffs will just infinitely heal you with willpower. Alternatively, you can just use any mutant champion. You're going to be shrugging them off and gaining extra power as well. So this is definitely one of the easier lanes overall to take in this chapter. Now we have Stunning Reflection, Parry, Vulnerability, Mixmaster, and Best Defense 3 nodes. Now here you can approach it in 2 different ways. You can either focus on the Mixmaster part and counter it, and just use any evade counters like Mole Man, or I don't know, Falcon or Professor X, and you'll be fine. Nothing's gonna happen. Play as if opponent is stun immune, bring in a solid evade counter, and it's gonna be perfectly ordinary fight without many kind of like tricky opponents to go up against. Or you can bring in champions like Diablo, like Human Torch, play around Mixmaster, ideally with, let's say, medium light combos or medium heavy combos, and disable that stunning reflection with your poison or incinerate debuffs, and then utilize parry, gain some extra attack, and, you know, do more damage. So poison or incinerate champions, very useful. Immortal Abomination perhaps, or Human Torch again, or just bring in evade counters. As long as you know exactly which champions you're bringing in why, in order to counter which kind of like aspects of this lane, it's going to be very easy. So you either want to counter evade, or you want to counter stunning reflection. But keep the other node in mind and you'll do fine. Right, and now moving on to the next one, Paradox Special. So whenever attacker or defender uses special attack, you gain a Paradox charge. And then we have the debuff potency increase for each Paradox charge. And this description is like the worst one ever. Whenever the attacker interrupts the defender's light or medium attacks, remove one Paradox charge. That means when you intercept them. That's literally what it means. I don't understand why they have to use this lingo, but if you want to get rid of Paradox charge, so you need to intercept them. And then we have Quantum Power, where they have increased power gain until you gain 3 Paradox charges. So the faster you do it, the better. And it's Do You Bleed. So since it's Do You Bleed, obviously Nick Fury, Mole Man will do fantastic here, without a doubt. A secret gem here is actually Ultron. Ultron is capable to absolutely put up some insane bleed numbers, or more or less any of your bleed heavier champions. I assume Black Panther can do quite well, maybe Jabari Panther, whoever else are, you know, better bleeders. But yeah, my MVPs definitely was like Mole Man and Nick Fury, and I have seen some incredible stuff coming out of Ultron here. Right, Carnage should be quite interesting as well, I think. I think Carnage should be quite good. The only problem would be trying to intercept as frequently. Let's move on to this Mystic Curse, and this is effectively Science and Mystic lane. So any Mystic, by launching special attack, can and will inflict poison on the opponent. The more buffs the opponent has, the stronger the poison is. So interestingly enough, you might not necessarily want to nullify their buffs. Therefore, champions like Sasquatch or Dragon Man could be very interesting in order to increase the poison potency. But in reality, you just want to bring in poison champions. That's about it, because they will shut down all the healing, and then only thing that you need to contend with is Limber. Now, if you are worried about Limber playing an aspect, then champions like Dr. Doom, for instance, who can knock down opponents and do everything, bypassing Limber obviously will work just phenomenally as well. But yeah, you can use Immortal Abomination, you can use Abomination plus Red Guardian, you can use any Mystic champion that's capable of spamming special attacks, and you will do just about fine. Right, and the final lane here is Rising Sun, Stacking Power, Stage Fright, Hard Knock Life. Now, here, Rising Sun and Stage Stacking Power kind of interact with each other. Therefore, they, to a degree, nullify each other. Every time you strike an opponent, you will gain a buff. And every time you gain a buff, you'll gain power. So any champion, whether they do normally gain buffs or not, kind of like work for this combination of two nodes. Now, what makes it harder is this Hard Knock Life and the fact that with Raising Power, you want to throw a heavy attack in order to be able to get rid of the Furies. Otherwise, you can start degenerating. And Hard Knock Life makes it annoying for you to parry. Now, we have only one champion in the game that is immune to Disorient, which is Apocalypse. Therefore, Apocalypse by default becomes a really, really good option here. And other than that, thanks to Stage Fright and Rising Power, there are several some cheese options available, namely Hercules. Corvus can put up some insane good numbers here as well. But other than that, this is a relatively generic node where you can use any champion that does not need to absolutely throw special attacks in quick succession. And that is it. You can play around it as in like drop a combo, parry, drop a heavy, then slow play a bit, and then do the same thing again. The fights itself aren't too hard on the lane, and, you know, it's fairly decent lane. It's just one of those that's annoying unless you cheese it. That being said, we can move on to the bosses, and the bosses are Spider Fox. So we have Spider Pig, Stealthy, and Starkey. Now for Stealthy and Starky, Magneto, namely White Magneto, especially for this guy, is very, very good because he will go unblockable for several seconds unless whenever you inflict a non-damaging debuff. So stun would count as one. However, if you use White Magneto pre-fight, then that's a stun passive and you can bypass him going unblockable. So you can use White Magneto himself or any champion that does not inflict non-damaging debuffs outside of the parry, for instance. Is a very solid option, especially because here we have Heavy Assault. So you can bring in White Magneto, activate the pre-fight, and just parry heavy to your win. Perfectly fine strategy. And against this guy, we do have Tenacity, but we also have Foresight. So Mole Man, Magneto are going to do fantastic. Venom is a really, really good option for every single one of these bosses. Against Spider-Ham, it's actually also fairly straightforward fight. Just pick a champion, don't use special attacks, and have that champion be able to counter their weight. So you can bring in Venom, just don't use special attacks and you'll do well. You can bring in Mole Man. You know, with Mole Man, you can also shrug off debuffs, so then you can enter your frenzy, and then you can just have a ton of fun. And in general, most of the kind of like skilled champions or evade counters will work here. The secret behind the fight is you'll be gaining a ton of willpower heal, thanks to Spider-Ham placing, you know, Taunt on you, thanks to this Stung Once, Stung Twice node placing Taunt on you, you're going to be placing Power Stings on you. So long as you can counter their weight, that's it. If you don't care for anything else, just don't use a special attacks and you'll be fine. Stealthy, again, Venom or White Magneto pre-fight or any champion that reliably counters a weight will do just fine. Like Mole Man can be used there as well for sure. And this guy as well. There is Foresight, so you definitely want to capitalize on that. And you'll be fine. Bring in Ghost. Ghost is going to do fine too. Yeah, so bosses have plenty. Honestly, these are some of the most kind of like straightforward bosses. There's nothing special to them. Generically, you just kind of want to counter their weight, and that's it. This is the last quest that's actually really straightforward once you get to it. None of the parts here are like really troublesome. I think 734 is one of the harder quests, and we're going to get to that either today or tomorrow, and then we're going to carry on at a brisk pace until we're done. Let me know if you have any more questions, and I'm going to catch you guys soon. See ya. Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about